on the famed Sunset Boulevard in the heart of Hollywood, California, that I sit down for an exclusive interview with the chairman and CEO of the Motion Picture Association of America, Senator Chris Dodd. I'm Michael Reel, and this is ReelUrbanNews.com. Senator Dodd, tell us about the Creativity Conference.
Well, the idea was to sort of educate people about the importance of innovation and creativity. About 2 million people in this country got up this morning and went to work in the film and television business, or a job dependent upon that. 95% of them are never going to walk a red carpet or have their picture on the cover of People magazine. These are hardworking people out there that drive trucks, electricians, carpenters, makeup people, sound people, film people. Some of the people we got right in the room here with you, Michael, are the people we talk about. Sure. And so creativity is important for people to understand how we've benefited as a country. Both we've been entertained, we've been motivated, we've been educated, we've been stimulated through the use of film for almost 100 years now. We've led the world in many ways, while other countries make film and do a great job. Most would admit today that consistently the best products are made in the United States. And we're getting better at it with new platforms, new opportunities for people that didn't exist even a few years ago. So I'm excited about being a part of this industry.
And I know technology had to be at the center of this conference.
It did, exactly right. In fact, we hosted the event with Microsoft and ABC News. So it wasn't the so-called traditional. I always say to people, look, I represent technology companies who manufacture content. Okay. Other technology companies manufacture other things, but I manufacture content. That's my job, what my studios do and the independent filmmakers do. And so we partnered up with Microsoft and ABC News to talk about the importance of technology and content. It's not a choice where you pick one side of the equation or another and somehow we're all winners. Right. Technology needs content, content needs technology. And my little girls growing up are going to have so many more opportunities to see things and to enjoy things as well as learn things that you and I never had that opportunity before. Sure. So it's an exciting time.
I know we were looking at some of the photos and your colleague, Vice President Biden. I know he was a key cog in this magnificent wheel. Talk about what Vice President Biden brought to the conference.
Well, he and Judy Hsu from California, Congresswoman, so many other people who are co-chairs when he was in the Senate of a creativity caucus, copyright, intellectual property caucus. And it was people who understood the value and the importance of this, not just in terms of film and television, but the innovations and creativities in the country. So he comes to the vice presidency with a long history of having been involved in the issues. He was chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee during some of the most controversial nomination hearings for Supreme Court justices. But all during that time, he maintained a strong interest in innovation and creativity. So he was a perfect choice to be a keynote speaker at the Creativity Conference in Washington.
Great. This past Oscar season, we saw the movie 12 Years a Slave win the Best Picture Movie of the Year award. Right. And we've also seen recent developments prior to that with Cheryl Boone Isaac becoming the president of the Academy. Right. How exciting is that from your perspective?
I think tremendously important. I mean, this is it's taken a long time, too long, candidly. And I'm proud of the fact that in my 36 months here, we started a diversity and multicultural outreach program at the Motion Picture Association, among doing a number of things to try and introduce more audiences to talented minority filmmakers, emerging filmmakers. And obviously that when you had Fox Searchlight produce 12 Years a Slave, you see the new leader of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, Ms. Isaacs. Not to mention a variety. There were some 10 films this year that came out from the minority community. Not everyone achieved the status of 12 Years a Slave or The Butler or Fruitville Station and so forth, which we hosted, by the way, at the Motion Picture Association, as well as having Ryan Coogler come and talk to an audience there about why films matter and why it's important to reach out and encourage minority filmmakers. Just did an event the other night with the Asian Pacific American Caucus as well to recognize a documentary film celebrating the life of the first member of Congress in the 1940s from Asia. So we're trying to do a lot of things. We do a screening now, free screenings at the Stone of Hope on the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington with Cry Freedom, among other films that we screened outdoors last summer. We're going to do it again this summer. Okay. I've been a major supporter and backer of the American Black Film Festival, and we'll do it again in New York, now moving from Miami. Trailer Fest, which we are going to host again. So I'm trying to do a lot more, and a lot more needs to be done. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not crowing about this, but I'm trying to, we were starting from almost zero. 3 years ago. So we've come a long way, but we've got a long way to go yet. This industry, I've been reading the history of it out here, and how these 100 years ago, most of these companies are just about 100 years old, 1912, 1913, 1914, and a lot of them were immigrants that started the business, and so they were minorities in their own way. A lot of them were the Jewish faith. The majority were in many ways that started the company, whether you're talking about Adolf Zucker, or you're talking about the Lowe's family, or you're talking about the Jack Warner and his brothers that came in, William Fox and others that started these companies, and in many ways created American dreams in a sense, because they were fulfilling their own dreams as immigrants coming here. And I think keeping that theme alive, that this industry has done so well when it has been courageous and forward-leaning and embracing immigrants, minorities, and others, telling their stories, creating that more perfect union that the founders of this republic talked about. It's never going to be perfect, but if we can get closer, creating a more perfect union, then each generation bears that responsibility. And the ability of this community to educate people not only here but around the world has been phenomenal.
How do we, with all this new young talent and all these different platforms, obviously you think about online, the major platform, a major shift. How do we harness America's young talent?
Well, today they have more opportunities. That young Jeffrey Katzenberg, that young Spielberg, that young Spike Lee that just showed up today, arrived here in town on a bus with a dream of becoming a filmmaker. They have so many more opportunities than those three names that I mentioned a generation ago, because there are many more platforms today. The equipment, we're watching equipment here being used that was unavailable even a few years ago, right now, at this very moment. And it's not as expensive as the old equipment used to be. We sponsor a short film festival as well, and with people who now, just those 5-minute films that people enter. Some enter with just an iPhone. That's their camera. And so today, if you have a dream about making a difference in film and television, today you can get into this so much more easily than a Spike Lee did, a Steven Spielberg did, a Jeffrey Katzenberg did, a Jim Giannopoulos. I mean, you go down that list of the great filmmakers in this town. Today, they'll be the first to tell you, you'll have so much more opportunity to make a difference, not only here but globally, if you've got the talent, the ability, and you're a great storyteller and how to put that story on digital, on film. Then you've got a great chance, unlike any other generation had before you.
In 3 years, are you happy with what you all have achieved?
I am. I think we're in a different place. The industry is doing better. That's not my responsibility. Obviously, they have business models, although they're doing a better job in reaching out to broader communities. We had a 16% increase in the Hispanic moviegoers in the United States. Now 70% of revenues are coming offshore. Huge market growth in the Pacific, Asian Pacific area as well. I'm going to be working with a fellow named Mo Ibrahim, who's a Sudanese man, was an innovator in the cell phone technology, has a foundation. We're going to be working with them to have filmmakers from Africa as well as the United States doing workshops and panels at their next large gathering in New York or in Africa, to try and encourage more emerging filmmakers in that huge continent. Nigeria does a lot, maybe makes more movies than any country in the world. Nollywood, they call it. But their audience is a domestic one in Nigeria, some in Kenya, some in South Africa, but there's a lot bigger audience out there as well in this new platform, merging platforms that are occurring. So I'm excited about where all of this is going.
Okay. I know you're having a great time traveling around the country and around the globe, talking about this American film industry and all the stories that are able to be told from pictures. What is your job as president?
Well, the CEO is a couple of things. One, the content. There's still a problem with theft of the content. And there are a lot of hard-working people. If you stay around longer at the end of a film and watch the credits, sometimes they're longer than the movie. And so protecting the people who work in this business, their jobs, hard-working people, most of them are not, as I say, movie stars walking red carpets. They're trying to raise families, pay mortgages, and encounter all the problems that families do in life. They deserve to have their jobs protected. And when you create something, you ought to be able to protect that creation, that innovation. So that's number one job. And there's a major problem with theft of content today. That's number one. Two is to grow the market as well. And we're doing that globally. As I mentioned, 70% of the revenues now come offshore. It used to be under 50% only a few years ago. And so it's growing. All over the world, this product is growing and opportunities to see it. Third, I work with the profitability of it. The company's trying to keep jobs here in the United States. Now, 40 states have production credits where they try to attract the filmmaking to our cities. I just was in Cleveland, where about 40% of Captain America was shot in the streets of Cleveland. I'm going to be in Atlanta in a week or so, where a Disney film was shot down there as well, to say thank you to the hotel workers, to the laundry guys, to the diners, as well as the extras in these films in a local area for helping make that product become real.
And that's important because I guess as moviegoers, we're sitting in the theaters in these comfortable chairs, and we're not thinking about all the jobs that are connected to this industry.
Huge.
But that's your responsibility.
That is, to go out and remind people of that. I mean, it's not just about the high-paid actor, and I respect them as well, or the director or the producer. But the overwhelming majority of people who work in this business, $43 billion in wages in the United States, $41 billion in payments made to vendors, the 310,000 vendors in the United States whose livelihood depends upon a domestic film industry. And now with 40 some odd states that are actually in the business of production. New York, it does a great deal. Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, New Mexico, Georgia. Tyler Perry has this huge facility in Atlanta. Has done a remarkable job in producing quality television programming and film. 25,000 people in Georgia today work directly in the film and television business.
Wow.
It's amazing.
We were talking about it earlier, looking at the landscape of the importance of the independent filmmaker.
Yeah, as well.
When we think about the multicultural communities around the globe, how important is that independent filmmaker to the movie business?
It's huge. I mean, again, I represent the large studios.
Right.
But they will tell you as well, they work with independents as well. I mean, today there's usually, if you watch who's made a film, in the old days it was just one company. It was Paramount or Warner Brothers. Today you'll see those names, but you'll also see other names as part of the introduction of a film. So the independent filmmakers are critically important. If you go to these film festivals, like in Santa Monica, there's a great market there. The Cannes Film Festival, there are 1,000 kiosks there with local independent filmmakers selling their products all over the world. It's a very vibrant entrepreneurial business. They're all not highly successful, but they're trying. And so it's more than just the big companies, which are critically important and do a great job, but also these independent filmmakers as well that are creating opportunities for people that didn't exist in the past.
I know you touched on it a bit earlier. It's the challenge of theft. How damning is that to this industry?
It's a lot. It really is. And again, we have to do a better education job to remind a generation coming along that to respect people's innovations and creativity. And you'll see as something like Game of Thrones, which is a very popular TV drama that HBO does. There are about 400,000 thefts of that program. Breaking Bad was a very popular program on HBO as well. It wasn't HBO, excuse me, CBS. And they had huge amount of thefts. I think it's like 800,000 thefts of that, the last episode of that program. So it does undermine the ability to do a couple of things. One is to raise money. A lot of venture capital is necessary to finance film or television. Not all of it is financed by the studios or the independent filmmaker. It's hard enough to get an investor to write a check to support the creation of a product. Only 4 out of 10 films ever make a nickel back. 6 out of 10 lose money. So if I'm trying to get you to invest in my product, you're worried, first of all, whether or not it will make, under the best of circumstances, anything. When I add the fact this film may be stolen, or this TV show stolen thousands and thousands of times, that doesn't encourage you to write that check. So it undermines our ability to continue to produce, provide those jobs for people as well. So content theft isn't just about stealing. It's about stealing people's livelihoods, not just the product.
Finally, as we prepare to close, what's your hope for the film industry as we continue to advance in the 21st century?
Well, one, that it be more inclusive, that it reach out as well and develop. I admire what 20th Century Fox did with 12 Years a Slave, taking a chance on a product, taking a chance on emerging filmmakers as well. We need to encourage more of that, in my view. Again, it's been a great source of employment, economic growth. 7 to 1, $7 to $1, exports to imports in this country. Not many industries in the United States that can claim that record as well. So it's a great business, great job creator, and great educator. How many people's lives were changed in the 1940s because they saw a gentleman's agreement about anti-Semitism? How many people's lives were changed because of Kill a Mockingbird? I mean, you can talk about the documentaries and the editorials in newspapers, but I suspect an awful lot of Americans got better educated by that film than almost anything else. Philadelphia with Tom Hanks.
Yes, great movie.
About HIV and AIDS.
Sure, sure.
A lot of people had a different view of that issue and that disease and that problem as a result of that film. And you and I could go down and name film after film after film that just didn't educate you and me. It taught us something. It changed our minds about how we looked at our neighbors, how we looked at the world in which we live. And to me, that's the great value of this in many ways. It's entertainment's great, but it's that education, that stimulation, that causing you and I to maybe think a little differently about the world in which we live. And so, to me, it's I'm only going to do this so long. I'm only one person along a chain of all of this. I spent 30 years in the United States Senate.
Sure.
If you had told me 5 years ago you and I'd be having this conversation, I'd be wondering what you were smoking or I was smoking.
And not me.
Not me. So I'm in a different place today. But I've become an advocate, a huge advocate of this industry and business, and proud to be a part of it.
But we also know that you were groomed. Your family has a long history of helping America.
Well, my father was a senator and cared an awful lot about things. I wasn't alive at the time, but in the late 1930s, he and my mother had to be escorted out of the state of Arkansas because he won a jury trial on a lynching case. He was one of the Justice Department in those days. He was one of the floor managers of the Civil Rights Act of the 1960s, 1964. And so I grew up in a household where equality and opportunity was very much something that was part of our childhood growing up.
Right,
I never imagined I'd spend 36 years in the United States Congress, 6 in the House and 30 in the Senate, but proud to have tried to carry on that legacy that my father, I think more courageously in his time because it was more of an uphill climb in those days. But we're still climbing mountains and still have a ways to go, but we're getting there.
What has it been like to work with President Barack Obama?
It's great. He and I sat together on the Foreign Relations Committee for the years he was in the Senate, got to know each other well. I've seen him a lot during his tenure. Obviously, he's at a different place today. We had a nice lunch together in December, just before the Christmas holidays, alone, which was very pleasant of him to invite me down for that. Sure. And he loves movies, by the way.
Right.
I'm told he watches more movies, and he cares more about them than any president in history, going back to Woodrow Wilson, who was the first American president to watch movies in the White House. And he's a good man. He's doing the best he can for the country. I admire him immensely, and I think he's leaving a great legacy on health care. I'm so honored to have been a part of writing half the health care law, the Dodd-Frank legislation, financial reform, and then things like dealing with mental health parity and a variety of other issues during the last 2 years I was in the Senate and his first 2 years as president. And we've maintained that friendship since I left.
Senator Dodd, thank you for a wonderful
Michael,
opportunity.
thank you very much. Enjoyed talking with you.
All right, thank you.
You bet.